Welcome back to another guest episode of Lessons from Success. We have a very different episode this week, and I'm so excited to have Alicia Gowans on the show. She's an absolute legend in the fitness community with numerous pro card wins and has over 3 WBFF international crowns. She's gone through so much to get to where she is today, including a broken back, which set her back immensely. She also has over 500,000 followers on both her business accounts and her personal Instagram accounts, and she's absolutely killing it in the social media space. In our interview, we discuss fitness, her beliefs, and what it takes to succeed in a very saturated industry. This is such an amazing interview if you're even remotely interested in health and fitness, and honestly, even if you aren't, there's so many gems on building followers, building a business, and all those lessons she's learned along the way. Don't forget to give us a follow on our Instagram at lessonsfromsuccess_podcast or at Lessons from Success on Facebook. Now, without further ado, let's get into this interview. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got Alicia Gowans here from Ali's Angels and Alphas. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm really great. Thanks, Bryn. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you on. This is definitely a different spin to what we're doing with the recent tech guys and all those sorts of things. So
absolutely,
I'm so excited to give my audience this opportunity.
I was listening to some of the ones you've done previously, and I thought that I actually did say that to my fiance. I was like, well, I think that we're going to be giving them a completely different type of podcast when I come on because, I guess the background and what I do and where I've come from is going to be very unique.
Definitely very unique, especially compared to the standard IT founder. Mm-hmm. I don't think they've got a similar background to you.
and don't get me wrong, because I do come from a corporate background. I was a strategic management consultant with a very successful international consulting firm for 10 years, but I ran that concurrent to the business that I currently have and the one that we're going to talk most about, which is in the fitness realm. And this was considered at the time my hobby business, funnily enough. I didn't even have it on my LinkedIn because I felt that it would compromise my I guess the way that people viewed me. I thought they would take me less serious if they thought that I had this fitness side of what I did. And I had 3 very successful boutique performance facilities at the same time as having this international consulting firm. But my passion just it always was within the fitness realm. And it's definitely where I found the most fulfillment and satisfaction. So for me, the transition of a full-time corporate, yet very successful corporate career into this full-time was a no-brainer. It had to happen, in fact. And there came a point in my life where, and I mentioned to you offline, I had this amazing mentor that was a Tibetan Buddhist monk. It was through the work that I did with him that I found the revelation that that's actually what I was destined to do, more so than where I currently sat in my, from what most people looking on the outside in would deem as being the perfect life, you know what I mean? The perfect job, the perfect life, the perfect status, and all this wealth in materialism. But you'll soon find in life that, wealth and happiness can't be defined by financial return only. There's got to be so much more to it, and success comes in so many different factors. And for me, leaving a legacy is far more where I sit on the space of what success means to me than just financial return these days.
That is so true. So let's talk about the start of your amazing fitness journey then. So have you always sort of been into fitness or dabbled in it a little bit and it just kind of grew from there?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I've been in fitness my entire life, and I was, a high-level competitive athlete throughout, school in 3 or 4 different forms of sporting backgrounds. I was a ballerina. I'm an ex-ballerina. I was a dancer. When I started bodybuilding, I was 42 kilos. I was like a chihuahua wringing wet. So gaining muscle for me was harder. It wasn't about, sort of coming into something and trying to lose weight. It was about coming into something and trying to build on a physique.
Yeah.
And I guess, it'll probably lead us into, how it even came about and how I came from dance into this was because I had hyperflexibility, hypermotion, and I basically had a stress line fracture that I developed in my back, which leads us into a later journey, 10 years on from that one. But initially the humble beginnings became that, I could no longer dance. So I had to find something else. And in my rehabilitation process, I fell in love with this journey of working on my body in a completely different way, of gaining strength and repositioning, I guess, patterns of movement and gaining, postural realignment where I had discrepancies and imbalances through the application of weight and resistance-based training. Now, as an athlete previously at school, I had always been in this realm, and I had done an excellence in sports program in year 11 and 12 that had actually, lent itself to giving me my first year and a bit of my university degree covered off, which was great. So, it's always been a part of me, and it had been something that I've been doing my whole life. So as I said, I had these hobby businesses this whole time, even whilst I was in corporate. Even 4 degrees later, I still had these businesses, and fell in love with it to the point where obviously then I continued to pursue it whilst I was doing my corporate career as an athlete, moving into the space of bodybuilding. I didn't take it to the point that I've taken it now as seriously and as my primary focus until the day that I decided that enough was enough and I'd given corporate up completely. And that would have been 7 years ago.
7
years ago in February.
Wow. So 7 years is when you started getting into the bodybuilding world yourself?
Full-time, completely. This was my only focus, away from corporate, and we built this business as my primary business, no longer my secondary, in inverted brackets, hobby business.
Wow. Was it a hard transition going from corporate to this? Just because I guess the structure behind something like consulting as opposed to this is so
giving
different.
up the stockings every day and heels every day? No, hell no way. That was actually really easy. Stepping into tights and Nikes and pineapple hairdos, I was totally okay with that. The no makeup thing, could totally get down with that too. Look, I think what makes me such a unique coach and makes me an exceptional athlete is the fact that I've got the consulting background actually behind me. I've got a very consultative approach to everything that I do. I'm very much about solutions orientation, and it's all strategy anyway. So when you look at a physique and you look at optimal health, it's actually got a strategy to it. And when you're looking at and you're diagnosing, the condition or the baseline of someone, it's very simple. It's very similar to the way you diagnose a business in itself too. It's the context of creating the strategic plan for where you want to go. And there's project mapping back from that to be able to develop, the end outcome. So it's very similar. And the skill set that I guess that I had from corporate days and from my previous degrees really has lent me, the ability to communicate with and get a lot more out of my athletes, because I can engage with them in a different way and on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
So, I think that it's been an easy transition from that point of view, because there's been application of that whole skill set and that whole background across to what I sit in now. And I think it's definitely been a driving force in the success of my coaching business now too. Yeah. It's definitely a unique selling proposition when, it would be a USP for us whenever we're looking at, where we sit comparative to our competitors in the marketplace. The connections we make, the relationships we build, the compassion that we have, the leading edge and cutting edge systems we have, which comes from a commercial mind, obviously.
Yeah.
A second to none. We really do look to be the forefront and the leaders in what we do. So, we're constantly evolving what we do from the consumer end. So, system upgrades every 18 months, developments of new apps, development of new processes. I'm constantly evolving my skill set with, international qualifications and recognitions, and upgrading my certification levels in what I do. So my knowledge base is constantly expanding. So as you can see, you don't ever get complacent. You don't ever, get to a point where you go, okay, well, my business is going great, so I'm going to stop here.
Yeah.
You look at it and you go, my business is going great, but I want to continue to be the leader in my field. So how do I stay ahead of the pack?
Yeah.
And then you do the things you do to get there.
You've definitely stayed ahead of the pack. I mean, I think I'd need a stats degree to basically recite all of the wins and everything that you've had in your business. Did you want to go over a few of what you've achieved personally?
Sure,
and then what
sure.
Your clients
So
have?
I think if we look at my career in this space, in fitness, before I went professional, before I became a professional athlete, this is my 5th year as a professional athlete within the WBFF, which is a World Beauty, Fitness and Fashion Federation. For anyone listening, if I could paint the visual for you, picture Victoria's Secret runway models meets the gym.
That is actually the most perfect.
Actually, essentially exactly what I do. So we will have a qualifying round where the physique itself is on criteria and on judgment, and that's 60% of the overall grade. And that is in a bikini round, but the bikini is exceptional. It's exquisite and it's extremely blinged up, and it's fashion orientated, so it's fashion forward. And beauty, presentation, the poise, the grace, and the ability to work the runway, that's 40% of the grade. So
Wow.
So it's not just your physique. So this
Yeah.
is where it comes into play, and we talked about this offline, a moment ago, about the fact that the inner game is so imperative in this sport. You must be so mentally strong, you must be so at a place of inner peace and at this place of calm within yourself and who you are and what you've done in your journey to get to that point, that you've given everything you could plus 1% more in order to be able to stand on the stage with a confidence that says, I'm here to win it, and it really does take that. So before I went professional in this federation, I was at the top of another federation, so the Natural Bodybuilding Association, which has now changed its name to ICN. I was Miss Australia, so I won against, I think there was 800 people that competed that day, but in my actual, across 5 divisional lineups for my division, I think there was just under 300 girls that I won against. I then went on to compete for Australia and won the Australian title, then went overseas and got second in the world in that division, in that federation, then came home and wanted to grow because I wanted to look strong. I wanted to change the perception of this, stereotypical view from when I was younger of it all being about being thin and skinny and small. And I wanted women to feel empowered that they could go into the gym and do what the men could do and not be fearful of looking like a man, still looking feminine and petite and beautiful, but being strong and having this optimal life and quality of life that is going to see them through across all areas of their life. This health of mindset, this health of the way we view ourselves, this internal dialogue and linguistic of the way we speak to ourselves with kindness and compassion rather than self-doubt and negative dialogue. That was really important for me. So that was another reason that I wanted to step into what I did. So fast forward from winning those initial titles, a year and a half later, because I had to grow a fair bit. I was pretty small coming from an ex-ballerina, 42 kilos. I now sit at 64 kilos. So to give our listeners a bit of perspective, that's natural muscle growth over the course of 10 years.
And you were lean too.
I'm lean. I sit pretty lean all year round. So, it's good. It goes to show you that when you're in optimal health, you don't forego anything. Like I live quite a balanced lifestyle now. I went on to get my professional status in the WBFF in my very first show, which is great. That's kind of unheard of. It's it's not what is it's kind of the 1%ers that get to do it first time around. Most of the time people compete 3 or 4 times before they get their professional status. I went on to do my first professional international show as my pro debut in 2015, and I was the only Australian to get a top 10 call out.
Wow.
Against 180 professionals in my lineup, which was great.
That's amazing. The ballerina would have helped a lot, especially in the WFB.
On the performance side of it, it definitely does. It gives you the ability to create lean lines. It gives you the ability to have a free-flowing movement. It's an expression of movement. And the best thing about the WBFF, unlike other federations, is that you bring your own personality. There's no conformity. There's no quarter turns with a routine that everyone does the exact same poses, because it's not like that. You bring your own style, you bring your own flavor, you bring your own posing routine, and every year it's got to change. You've got to evolve. You've got to get better. And so after that year, I came home and I broke my back. So
yeah, you heard that correctly. Broke her back.
Broke my back. I'm talking like in an ambulance, in a brace, in traction. Couldn't walk, couldn't lift.
Wow.
Was told that I would need to have surgery, was told I would have to give up bodybuilding, and I gave them my middle finger and told them that would not be the end of me. And as stubborn as I am, went away and found a way to rehabilitate and come back to stage despite all the odds and in spite of what they said. Now, it meant that for 3 years, I did no squatting, no deadlifting. I've started again, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. In the last 3 months, I'm proud to say that I'm back vertically loading and deadlifting, but we'll come back to how and why, because this is a pretty prolific change in my life too. I did it all despite that, and without squatting or deadlifting, and with a very significant journey of managing a chronic state of pain, because I was in chronic pain for 3 years daily. Chronic pain. I made it to 4 world titles. So I won my first world title, Miss USA, in December 2016. I made a comeback back-to-back straight after that in 2017. In April, won Miss USA April for the Northern USA title, so 2 crowns. Then came to London in the end of 2017, won my very first WBFF World Championship for the Fitness Diva category, and then backed that up with a second and reigning current World Championship in 2018.
That is amazing.
And we're en route now to win my third in August of this year.
You will win your third.
I will win my third. I've already visualized it. It's going to happen. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in visualization. I'm a big believer in putting your intent out there. But it's not just about putting an intent out there and hoping for the best. You know, the universe isn't just going to go, well, you want $1 million, so here's $1 million. You got to back it up. You got to put in your action. You got to put in your activity. And every single day, everything I do, and the 1% of everything that I do is delivering me closer to that third win, and I will have that crown. Don't you worry about that.
Let's talk about the back break, because it didn't happen under some ridiculous 1RM load that everyone would assume. What were you lifting, and how did it all come about?
So these things happen because usually it's an accumulative effect. It's not just a once-off incident usually, and this was the same for me. I had actually had a 20-cent coin tear in my tendon in my elbow, which had prevented me from training upper body for 9 months. So I overloaded my lower body. I'm a big believer, though, the universe gives us everything exactly when we're meant to have it. So I had that injury because I had currently, after getting off my first pro stage, realized that my lower half needed more development. So I believe the universe took my upper body out. So I had to focus on my lower. And I did. And I brought up the discrepancy and made up for my lack of symmetry really quickly. But in doing so, I had actually overloaded, and my adductor pulled tight in the squat. It was my second set, and it was just my warm-up set. So thank God I only had 60 kilos on my back. But my adductor pulled tight. It rotated my hip forward, and my piriformis on the opposite side locked on to protect my back and rotated my hip backwards. So if you can picture, at the bottom of a full depth range squat with 60 kilos on my back, my hips basically, the front, my right hip rotated forwards, my left hip rotated backwards, and my back just cracked.
Wow. Was it instant pain, or was it kind of...
You could hear the crack across the gym. I had pars fractures in my L4, my L5, and I had a multi-tier bilateral bulging disc structure from my L4 down to my S1.
Oh my God.
1 inch into my nerve root. So I liken it to watching a complete car crash happen, and I liken it to now when I talk about, you know, what has been the ongoing journey of chronic pain. It's been waking up every day and feeling like you're driving at 100 kilometers an hour with a handbrake on.
Oh my God. Because
my left leg has had that neural pain that runs all the way down from my L5SI. The nerve gets pinched down through the glute and then all the way down through my left leg. So most people would probably have given up. Most people probably would have gone and had surgery. Most people probably would never have lifted again. And most people would have gone, well, this is my life. But I'm not most people.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before. Like, people don't squat because they've got slight knee pain, and they probably have that knee pain because they don't squat.
Yeah, and largely probably because, okay, there are no weak body parts or any weak movements, right? So if someone has something that's going on like that, then you can usually trace it back to an area in the body that's not functionally moving correctly. And so in my case, it's easy to see that I was overloaded on a body part, so there was imbalance in, you know, that particular area, and I had some dysfunction. So it's not about there being, I wasn't broken, I just had a dysfunction. So right now, and even ever since my initial injury, I don't see myself as broken, I just had dysfunction. So my approach to life is, if there's a challenge, it's not overcomable. It's just, you find a solution because it's just a dysfunction. And dysfunction is something that is literally a term that shows you that functionality can be had once you remove the dysfunction. So just find a way to remove your roadblock.
Yeah, and would you say that kind of puts you ahead of the game in terms of other coaches? Is understanding that removing those functions is how you can really develop a body?
Absolutely, and I think what probably sets me apart from coaches in general is the fact that, you know, we talked about this before too, with my background and the fact that I have a consultative approach, and I guess, you know, my undergraduates with psychology as well, leads you to the premise that, you know, a lot of dysfunction isn't necessarily always physical. A lot of the barriers or the limitations people will have will be self-imposed mentally. They can be belief patterns. They can be past trauma. They can be, you know, past experiences that then imprint upon future there can be fear avoidance, there can be anchors of pain, there can be anchors of pain emotionally as well as physically. So, a lot of what I do is help people break back the layers and identify what it is that's preventing them from moving forward that they're doing to themselves.
Yeah. So when I know the fitness industry right now is so saturated with, let's be honest, crap.
Yeah, correct.
How do you differentiate yourself from that crap? I mean, I know for sure, I've looked at your before and afters on numerous clients, and you guys, you're not messing around. You guys show the most ridiculous results I've possibly ever seen, and it's absolutely amazing, which is why I've reached out in the first place. But the majority of people you see, and it's the standard. It'll be it'll either be the guy that's on juice saying you can get like this in 8 weeks,
I know.
or it'll be the girl that's like, look at my 8-week transformation, which clearly wasn't an 8-week transformation.
No.
How you've not only managed to cut through the crap of the industry, but you've also made such a strong name for yourself and have such a strong following doing so. How have you done that? Because the easiest way to get likes is to just, peddle this shit.
Yeah, that's true. And, look, I think I made this post a couple of years ago where I was like 10,000 followers. Wow, thank you. And that's only a few years ago, okay? Wow. And that's big for me because I am class, not ass, first and foremost. So you'll never find anything. Go back as far as you like. I dare you. I challenge you. You'll never find anything from me that was suggestive, provocative, chewing my way to the top or sleeping my way to the top, because it's not what I'm about, and it's not what any of my athletes are about. I'm an athlete. I'm an academic first, athlete second, but I'm of virtue always. So, I stand strong to my principles, my values. My values are to be of character and to be of value, not to be of, latest latest trends, because they're gimmicks. I'm not about the gimmicks. So I'm really big on, and we talked about this too, yes, evidence-based stuff, but I'm large on the human variation in every variable. Every single person is individual. So what sets us apart is probably the fact that I'm really big on being relatable and authentic always. That means showing you my low sides as well as my high sides, talking about the vulnerability and the down as much as well as I am the up. I'm very intuitive with my client base, so we tap into and we have very real conversations. And I guess probably the biggest thing that comes from my clients, and the biggest thing, because I do a lot of testing and I'm all about constantly evolving the business, so I do a lot of surveying, if you will, and data analysis and reviewing of my business. And some of the biggest things that I've found come back, and the trends that I've found, which is interesting, I always find these insights interesting. People will on average follow me for 18 months to 2 years before they buy me. But they buy me based upon the fact that they've trusted me before they've even bought me. And they've trusted me because my message has never changed, and there is authenticity across my pages always. I've never ever been or represented myself in any way that's been in conflict with something that I've represented a month, a year, 10 years ago. I'm the same person. Yeah. And so that's been the common theme for what people buy into, is that trust and that belief in what I have to sell on me as a person, based upon the authenticity and relatability and consistency across my brand and across my messages that I put on social platforms. So that'd probably be number one. Number two then would be the ability for me to relate and create a safe space for my clients to be completely non-judgmentally themselves. And that means showing me they're good, they're bad, they're ugly, they're diamonds, like whatever it is. And there is zero judgment, because you know what, like we all make mistakes and we all fail forward, and I encourage them to fail, because I encourage them through failings. We learn our biggest lessons and we find our diamonds for success. So, they don't fear failure with me, and they don't feel like they need to be perfect with me, because with me there is no such thing as perfection. There never will be. It's progress, and there is perfection in imperfection. And the minute that people fall in love with themselves and then their journey, magic happens, and we don't need to really try. It becomes effortless.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that's a great reason why I hate the term diet, because it's not a diet,
it's a lifestyle.
Exactly right. I've got a little bit of my story. I won't take up too much time of mine, because no one wants to hear that. But when I was 13 years old, I was 105 kilos. So I was a very sizable kid. And I lost all that weight, not just through eating one thing a day, and I was so unhealthy and so malnutrition when I lost it. And it was funny going through life, sort of battling the ups and downs of that, because I got down to 70 kilos and then I peaked back up to 85, 90, and I was kind of going through those fluctuations all throughout my life. It wasn't until I hit probably 23 or so where I kind of found that perfect balance of eating healthy 80% of the time, gymming 4 to 5 times a week, but not doing it to a point where I get sick of it, always mixing it up,
or where you become obsessive to the point where it becomes an unhealthy, an unhealthy focus. And this is, like what we talked about offline about, the if it fits your macros component of things, where I don't, I calculate everything out through to a macro process, and I teach my clients, my athletes, both my my transformation, my lifestyle clients, as well as my competitive ones. The balance is key to everything, 100%. And it's learning your body, and it's learning how it responds to food, and it's learning how to have in your off season how to turn the volume down, because when you're not in an on season and you're not being competitive to a stage and we need to be that restrictive for a specific condition, then you don't need the volume to be turned to 150%. You can turn it down. You can live 80-20, and it's teaching them how to have that variation and how to have that flexibility without guilt, without shame, without fear, because life is there to be lived. There must be balance. And in finding balances yourself, Bryn, I know you'll attest to this, you've found that it's effortless now to sit with your new baseline, which looks fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm sitting here looking at you, and I can't even imagine you sitting at anything more than what you're sitting at, other than perhaps us growing some muscle.
That'd be nice.
Which I can help you with anytime you're ready to go. But that's my point. You no longer fear going out and having a social setting situation. You no longer fear the concept of having your favorite food every now and then, because you know how to have it in moderation. You know that it's not, one bad day doesn't lead to, a derailment of your physique.
No.
And one good day doesn't lead to a competitive physique. Mm-hmm. So once you understand and can ascertain the difference between, the extremes and the restrictions of all or nothing, and you find a sweet spot in between, then you found where it happens in life to lead a lifestyle that is, not only healthy, but is mentally, healthy as well.
Yeah, and that was the hardest part for me, was finding that balance, because exactly as you said, you go all and then it would go absolutely nothing, because I've been going all for however many months it may have been, and I've literally burnt myself out in terms of fitness, and I just went back and regressed straight to the burgers, chips lifestyle that I was kind of living before. Do you have any recommendations on how people can get to that balance quicker?
Look, absolutely. And I think if you have no idea whatsoever, and you know that you've got a lot of work to do, and you know that Google is a minefield and it's really difficult to navigate, so I would definitely suggest getting help initially, absolutely. And then I think working on, some of the things just within your own set of, daily structures, because a lot of the times it's the small stuff and the small habits we can build daily that will lead to the biggest results and the biggest changes. I'm really big on small habitual rituals that you can do morning and night that set up your whole day and end your day for success. So they set your day up in the right tone, the right frame set, the right mindset. They give you the positivity that you require to go and do the things you need to do when motivation isn't always going to be present. And then the evening side of things gives you the ability to unwind, take the lessons, process them from the day, and then get the proper sleep patterns that are required for so much from, a benefit point of view of health. Everything begins and ends with the gut and with the sleep. Yeah. So if you can get those two in check, then the rest happens pretty effortlessly.
Guys, speaking in the entrepreneurial world about sleep, where everyone thinks to succeed you need to sleep for 3 to 4 hours a night.
Not at all.
That is complete crap.
Complete crap.
You do not need to sleep for 3 to 4 hours a night. That's a nap. You need so much more than that.
Well, it's true. And, look, they show that there's statistical research that shows that anyone that's getting less than 8 hours sleep is 50% more likely to have a weight problem.
Wow.
Yeah, 50% more likely.
Wow.
If you get less than 7 hours sleep, you're 25% more likely to be holding and retaining weight around the midsection.
No way.
Yeah. If you have deeper REM, if you can read a book for 30 minutes before you go to sleep, you will increase your REM cycle by 20%. The more REM cycle sleep you have, the greater creativity you tap into, the more recovery you have, the lower cortisol you have, the better insulin sensitivity you have, which therefore means the better, ability to process food you have. There is so much that is to be said for, this system and this organism that is our second brain, the gut, that we don't know, anywhere near enough about, that is bidirectional. So, and I was explaining this to Bryn offline, 80 to 90% of our dopamine and serotonin is not produced in the brain, it's produced in the belly, it's produced in your gut. Wow. That is a scary concept. So the microbiomes inside your stomach are what are fueling your mood. So they fight for space. Let's put it this way. You got two little armies going on inside your belly, okay? You've got the good army and you've got the bad army, and the bad army are the ones that are fed on sugar and processed and all of the things that are, necessarily the good food that you love to eat because they taste great. But once those little buggers get control of the system downstairs, they then send signals up to the brain to feed them more of what they need to be in power, right? Hence the cravings and the urges and the irrational midnight binges and the head down, bum up, and Nutella jar gone because while the kids are at school type behavior that I see so often. So all you really need to do to change the coin on this and to have the right army in charge, feed the right army the fuel they need to take power of the grassy knoll. Because essentially that's what's going on. The more that you have the right power in your second brain, the better your moods will be, the lower anxiety you'll have, the lower depression you'll have, the greater the creativity levels you'll have, and the more in charge you'll be of your emotions, which in turn will give you greater emotional intelligence and allow you to control situations where you might want to win deals, broker contracts, and maybe even just be better in your relationships day to day.
Wow. I guess really quickly, what's the best way to feed that good bacteria as opposed to the bad?
First things first, you need to have good gut health. So if you can look as a layman, if nothing else, just start introduce good, probiotics. Start looking at foods that aren't processed. Eliminate out sugar go on the sugar challenge and eliminate sugar from your diet for 30 days. Just do it for 30 days, and I guarantee your life will change. Your sleep patterns will improve. Your moods will improve. Your energy levels will improve. You're going to feel like absolute dog rubbish bad for the first week or so. You're going to be like, what is this Ali talking about? My God, you're going to have cravings. You're going to have migraines. That's your body screaming out and showing you that you needed it, that at a toxic at a cellular level, you're toxic. And so you're going to need to detox. But have a think about it like this. If your body is in distress and your army downstairs is the wrong army in charge, your liver gets pushed to work harder. And then you start to have a lot more stuff starts to break down internally. So if you want to have the best results mentally at work, emotionally in your relationships, physically in the gym, you want to create homeostasis. And the only way homeostasis can be developed is if we have peace. We need to have the white flag waved on the grassy knoll, and we need to have peace. We need to feed the right microbiome. So you need to cut out the things that are feeding the bad. And then in turn, that's going to feed the better moods and going to give you better results. And long term, you're going to just be a much happier, healthier human.
What annoys me is you'll see a lot of news articles about food that, different foods are being promoted for different great reasons, bad reasons, et cetera, et cetera. But it really is simple. If it's natural, if it hasn't been processed,
exactly.
it's basically good for you.
Exactly.
Obviously, you've got your calories in, calories out, et cetera, et cetera. But people are looking way too much into. They might have read a news article why carrots aren't good for you or something like that. Ignore the bullshit, and you know what's healthy, you know what's processed, and keep it as clean as possible.
So I would say for absolute starting point, go whole, go unprocessed. Go where you can organic, because there's a whole bunch of science stuff behind it. And you can get really quite technical on lectins and all these other things that make processed foods bad or non-organic foods bad. But try to go whole, unprocessed to begin with. Cut sugar out. That's a great starting point. Add in your multivitamin. Add in a good probiotic. That for starters will get you a long way. My second thing is this: eat slowly. If you just implement that alone, if you're someone that portion size is an issue for you, chew your food slowly, make a meal last 20 minutes. I guarantee you will start to eat less. You'll get in control of your macros without even having to worry about how to calculate them. If you can just do that one small thing to start with, you'll see a massive, massive difference. Then you can start worrying about the technicalities of how to calculate macros and how to work out what's right for you and what split works and what your genetics say you should and shouldn't do, because there's a lot of technicality in it, and there really is, and it's complex. And that's why I say get help if you want to get really serious with it. But in the interim, just take control by going whole, unprocessed, clean foods, organic where possible. Wash your vegetables before you eat them, and where you can, control your plate size. So think fist size for your portion of your protein. Your cupped hands is your size of your carbohydrates, and your thumb is your size of your fats. If you were to eat that at every single meal for 3 staple meals a day, that's another great way to get control just to start with, without having to worry about weighing your food and getting to the nitty gritty of, someone like me.
Yeah.
Where things are a little bit more complicated. But that's a great starting point.
For sure.
For anyone.
And I mean, the enemy, what is it? The enemy of execution is, what's the saying again? I've lost it.
Well, it's execution over effort for starters. And if you're not executing, then, if you're not planning, then you're basically planning to fail. So you just want to have some systems and some mechanisms of control.
Yeah. Perfect. Getting off the health and fitness now, because it's definitely a passion for me, as we can sort of both tell, and I know it is for you as well. Talking about business, you've grown so much on Instagram. You said that you got 10,000 followers 3 years ago.
Yeah, and we've grown organically. And look, it's been about, focusing on good quality content. It's been about, but like I said, being real, being authentic, being relatable, being engaged, engaging with our audience. But also, it's about showing realness, real people, real transformations, real life situations. It's about me sharing my back and the adversity I've had to overcome. And, the fact that, we all have challenges in life. We all have a story. We all have a backstory. No one is going to be saved from having challenge in life. That's life. That's what life is. If it was easy, then it wouldn't even be living.
It'd be boring.
It'd be boring as shit. We're here to actually overcome challenge and adversity. And I find adversity is what makes the most interesting people.
100%.
And the best entrepreneurs.
Well, if you look at people that have had nothing but life given to them, look at them. Look at Hollywood. Look at child stars.
I know. Enough said.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough said. So, look, I believe that adversity makes you, it doesn't break you.
So true. When it comes to Instagram, have you managed to do a lot of Is that where the majority of your conversions come from?
100%, definitely. Yeah. And then it's our clients. Our clients speak for themselves. We've created a culture inside of our business that is one of, real community and family. And I think that the brand, because it is such a family-orientated brand, and that it is consumer-orientated and results-orientated, but that it is built on connection, is what then makes our leveraged capacity on social platforms so much stronger. Because it's not just our platforms, it's our community's platforms, it's their platforms, it's their networks, it's their brought us, funnel, if you look at it from a sales point of view, that grows us. Because they're out there talking about us, they're out there as brand ambassadors, they're out there speaking about us as these people that ultimately have cultivated significant change in their life, or impacting lasting change that's put them on a trajectory where they're reaching their full potential finally for the first time in their life. That's powerful, and to me that's what's fulfilling. That's way more fulfilling than some corporate desk job will ever be, because that's a legacy.
For sure. Absolutely.
So when we talk about our growth hasn't happened about, doing something uniquely different to anyone else other than create change. In the people that we work with, we're orientated, around a culture of change, but we're orientated around a culture of genuine care and compassion. And we're really genuinely focused on delivering and over-delivering to our consumers, and upskilling, what we do, and like I've talked about before, progressively developing our systems to the point where the end user interaction and the end user experience is just exponentially, lifted. And I think as long as you're continuously doing that and creating these raving fans, then you don't even need to market, because they market for you. And that's essentially exactly how we've grown over the years.
Yeah, perfect. Do you think being in the health and fitness industry, it's been easier to grow on Instagram, or would you recommend that any business uses Instagram as a bit of
I'd recommend every single business have a social platform, absolutely. And I believe that you need to be digital, audio, and visual. You cannot be just a business card anymore. Long gone are those days. It does not work that way. You need to be fluid. You need to have accessibility to online strategies, because people don't work. You've seen my schedule, Bryn. It's all over the shop. I'm traveling all the time. People don't work 9 to 5 behind a desk anymore. Not everyone does that. And for the ones that do, that's fine. But it's an evolving landscape, globally. So we cannot. You must stay ahead of what's happening macroeconomically. You cannot look at, the way we've always done things and it's worked, so we're going to keep doing it. You've got to be 2 steps ahead, and you've got to understand that the changing landscape means you better change, or you're going to become redundant fast. So I think that, every business needs to take, an approach to having a greater understanding about the end user, where they live, what their avatar looks like, where they operate, how they function, how they think, where they tap into, where their inspiration comes from. Because a lot more people are driven by what they're inspired by these days. So
true.
you know, you better be out there delivering some level of inspiration, or at least tapping into the spaces where they find inspiration, because otherwise you're not going to be seen.
That's so true. That's so true. And you obviously have a great team behind your business as well.
Fantastic team.
Met them outside for 5 seconds. All the most amazing people, like handshakes,
Fantastic
perfect eye contact, just great people.
And they're awesome. And that's because they're all so confident. You know, they're all living this lifestyle. So this lifestyle just breeds this process, like I said, of personal development. Like, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly, my entire team has, you know, systems around them where, you know, they're challenged to evolve as humans daily, you know, on every level. And no mistake is ever disciplined. It's a learning opportunity for us, you know, not just as them as individuals, but for the broader team and for the business itself. So there is no kicking stick. It's transcendence always, you know. So we're probably a little bit more progressive like that.
Yeah, no, you can definitely tell just by looking at the business. It's amazing. If I was a run-of-the-mill PT, just doing it, you know, general snap PT, something like that, not to name drop any gyms or anything like that, how would you recommend that I elevate to the, obviously not to the level you're at overnight, but how would you recommend I elevate or sort of increase my my abilities?
Well, I think definitely, look, for me, the way that I did it over the years was I sought mentors. I think mentors are absolutely imperative. Further education, I'm constantly learning, constantly evolving. I'm constantly reading new research papers. Like I was saying to Bryn, you know, look, a staple of mine is, when I get on a plane flight, I don't waste time. I never waste time. There are no wasted hours in my day. We all get 24 hours. We should use them, you know, to the best of what works for us, right? So there is no downtime. When I'm walking or I'm doing my exercise, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm elevating my knowledge base always. I'd advise every single trainer to do the same. I'm, you know, researching. I'm on a plane flight I'll be analyzing 3 or 4 dissertation papers on a research piece, on an article or an area of interest, and it might be anything from nutrition through to training protocols through to, you know, mental health. Whatever it is, I'm doing that on a plane flight. So, you know, I don't waste time. I'd recommend that you look at your time and where you're wasting time, and you reduce that. Because in your early career as a PT, you want to make your most impact then. You want to work hard at first, so then you can be in a position to not have to be so full pedal to the metal, dial turned up later, right? Don't waste time. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait for things to come to you. Chase it down. Look for the people that are going to elevate you. Look at the people around you. If they're not better than you, have been better than you, or challenge you to be better, then elevate your circle, my friend, because you will never get anywhere further if the people around you are beneath you. You've got to look for people that make you almost quiver with nerves that you're going to say something wrong or silly, because they're that much better than you. Chase them. Sit with them. Make sure you spend time with them, because that's how you're going to grow.
For sure. What are your Instagram handles, just so everyone can at least be around that space around you and learn what you have to say?
So my personal Instagram handle is Alicia Gowans _ WBFF Pro. I'm going to look up my many business pages because there are a few, so bear with me, guys. We have got on the other side of it. Okay, so we've got Comp Coach, and then we've got my personal one that I've just given you. We've got Ali's Angels _ Fitness. You can also tune into my podcast, which is called The Competitive Edge Fitness Uncensored. We launch a new episode every week. We are downloaded currently in 78 countries daily. We're in the top 50 in Australia for their fitness downloads. So by all means, please, you know, get on board and have a look at what we have to say. We have some very interesting guests that we bring on weekly, you know, primarily in the space of fitness.
Yeah.
But we will bring people on from, you know, mental health points of view, all sorts of aspects that lead into it. You know, we may even get you on it, Bryn, at some point. I'm assuming that I think that might be a good way to go about it, because
I would love that.
It's always good to get people that come from a different, you know, perspective. And I'd love to talk about, you know, your introductory podcast where you talked about, if you know, losing your way a little bit, because I think that would be a great topic for our podcast, because a lot of people find themselves in this space, and it will be really lovely to see how you've, you know, worked your way through that as well.
I'd love to be on. That'd be amazing.
But thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that everyone got something out of this. And, you know, look, as I said to you, Bryn, I could have talked for 5 days underwater about pretty much any topic, from, you know, very specific science-based stuff on nutrition and training, right through to mindset and neuroscience and mindfulness and meditation and you name it. So
absolutely,
anyone that wants to know anything more or would like to tap tap into us, please feel free to do that. You can also visit us on our website, which is www.alisangels.com.au.
Yeah.
I have articles and blogs that I post on there frequently across all spheres of topics of conversation that might be of interest. And you have the opportunity there to put in for a consultation obligation free if you'd like to have a phone call from me to discuss anything at all. At all, literally.
That'd be perfect. Before you go, though, I would love to hear just a couple more things, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So some lessons that you've learned along the way in terms of business. If you could speak to your lovely 21-year-old self, which was last year, so not that long ago at
exactly
all.
Right. Exactly right.
What would you say to your 21-year-old self looking at getting into all this?
Look, number one thing would be know thyself. Yeah. Like, I would honestly, strongly urge everyone, don't go straight to uni. Take your time, take a break, take a year gap, go work somewhere, go work many places. Find out who the hell you are and what you're passionate about first. Know yourself. Do not think you need to be something for the sake of a stereotype or to fit in with a status or to fit a status quo, because you do not. Break the mold, break it often, fail forward, fail often. Yeah. That would be my number one thing. My number two thing would be, don't ever go into business with anyone until you feel like they add value or lift your game. They've got to do that. Don't go into business for the sake of not backing yourself. You'll always lose money, trust me, and you'll learn some really harsh lessons the hard way. And then lastly, I would say, go with your passion, not with money in mind. Money will follow. You live in your passion, you don't work a day of your life, and money is something that you don't even have to worry about. I assure you of that. You focus only on what's going to give you a return financially, and you will forever be in a job where you are not ever satisfied or fulfilled, or you're chasing your tail. Don't be that person that at 30 wishes they had changed their mind at 17. Just be that person at 17 that lives life first, finds out who the hell they are, and follows their compass the right direction.
I definitely wish I did that. I wouldn't have such a big hex debt over my head if I actually followed my passions when I was 17, 18. I always ask the question, and I know it's the back would have been a massive one, but have you had any massive failures along the way to sort of humanize the whole business process?
Hell yes. I mean, look, beside the broken back component to it, from the physical aspect, absolutely. Look, I went, and that's why I talk about, knowing thyself. I went into a business relationship, early in my career because, I think it was partially status, it was partially ego at the time, because I still sat in ego. I don't sit in ego at all anymore, but back then I did. It was still materialistic, and it was still about proving myself, and I'm not in that space anymore at all, spiritually. So it's I'm in a completely different space on so many levels. But back then, those things, those materialism, status, being at the top, being ruthless, all of those things in corporate that can, hijack you emotionally and really steal who you are as a person, led me to become in a business partnership with someone that was like the masculine version of me, even though I sat in a pretty masculine space myself at the time. And it was the wrong decision, and it was the wrong timing, and I lost $1.8 million in that process.
Wow.
So that was a big lesson. So if you want to know a big failure, that was my number one.
Wow.
Which then led me to an avoidance of bringing people into my business for a period of time.
Yeah.
And that's also a failure. So what you need to do is understand that you can make a mistake like I made, but don't take so long to understand the lesson in it, and be compassionate with yourself about the fact that it's not all, you take responsibility for your part in that, yes, but it's not all a failing, and it's not all a kick in the ass. There's a lesson in that and a learning that can take you to great places. And now my biggest value is in the people in the support network I have around me, and I have a team, and I have no fear and no hesitation of having people in my business, and I have no fear and no hesitation of being completely transparent on every aspect of my business, because now the people that are around me get the best of me, and I'm set up to understand how to get the best out of them. But I'm now not fearful of, and I know how to identify the best structures to do that in a way that grows me and takes me forward. And I have a lot more fun having people around me along the way rather than trying to do it all on my own.
How have you found such an amazing team? How have you managed to get them all on board?
I think that you get to a place where when you resonate and you emit a certain frequency and you sit in a space like I do now, which is just, really quite calm with where I am in life, in myself, and in my journey, and in my lesson, and in I guess my profession, where you attract it. You don't really have to. I find it just comes to me, and I find that you feel your way pretty quickly, because the gut is our second brain. You need to learn how to sit instinctively with your intuition inside of that. And my biggest thing in business is learn how to listen to that better than you do your head, because it will lead you right on the right path way more than your head ever will. And I can tell you this very, very honestly, your gut will weed out the ones that are right for you and wrong for you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's led me in the right path really well in the last 3 years, which leads us to where we are now, and things couldn't look better. And I think they're only going to get better. 2019 is a big year for us. We've got a lot of stuff happening globally. We've got another 2 business ventures we're opening up. There's a couple of other things we're launching. I'm starting 2 new big global podcasts, and I've got a very big global partnership with a very reputable, massive industry brand that is an idol of mine. So this is where I say elevate your circle, constantly look for the people who evolve you, and always be chasing more from yourself daily. Demand excellence of yourself daily. Is what I would probably part with.
I love that. Thank you so much for being on. You've been absolutely amazing.
Thank you for having me, and I hope everyone got something out of it.
Oh, they definitely did. Guarantee it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bryn.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show today. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and jump over to lessonsfromsuccess.com.au and make sure you jump on that email list so I can notify you as soon as any more shows come out. I'm your host, Bryn Turner, and thank you so much for joining us.